Roger that, rolling in.
See if you can get eyes on it. Okay, red light. That should be the red light. Jimmy, got anything?
Where the hell are you at now? I'm right behind you, base. Now, roger that.
I've got some good questions. Firstly, a nutrition-related question. I'm getting into my CrossFit. I'm starting to see some results because I've tightened my diet. Awesome. And I want to invest in some supplements.
Oh, right.
I've heard about BCAAs and proteins and creatines. What
Right.
should I do?
First of all, I would say think strategically. Get some stuff for your joints. Get some fish oil. Get some glucosamine. That would be the big. If someone said to me like, "What should I get?" 100% that should be your starting block.
Before protein?
Before protein.
BCAA?
Before protein.
Yep.
Before anything. Yeah. Get some stuff for your joints, because if I could go back, and say to the 20-year-old me, supplement wise, it would be 100% get a fish oil and get the glucosamine.
And with the fish oil, and I've learnt this the hard way, I used to get the big bottles of hundreds and hundreds of tablets of fish
1,000
oil,
tablets.
and you've got to take like 15 a day.
Yeah.
If you can get the red krill oil,
Super krill oil.
you only have to take one.
Super krill oil.
it's
So good. Unless you're a snake with the ability to swallow an entire cow, then try and stay away from them fish oil tablets, because they're not just huge, but they're huge, and you've got to have so many of them. So I'd start with that. I would start with those, lay that foundation, hit those, because if you still want to be using the joints in 10 years, 20 years, then you need to get that maintenance on.
I've never met anyone who said I don't want to use my joints in 10 years' time.
Completely.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely, prevention is better than cure. Prevention. Do the work now so you do not have to think about doing the work later.
Next, what's the next most important? If you're working out a lot.
Yeah. So the supplements that I'd be saying there would be something to increase your calorific intake, and it would be a protein, because you're going to struggle to eat the amount of protein that you're going to need to eat to repair what it is that you're doing. So it's just easier if you can drink it. It's a supplement. It's not to replace real food. Real food is the best thing that you can take, but it's to get you some additional calories and some additional nutrition in there. So I'd be saying just a good, clean protein. There's so many arguments to be, am I going to take the pea protein or the hemp protein or the whey protein, whatever? I would say unless your nutritional religion dictates that you need to take a particular one, vegan one, whatever it is like that. If you're open to any, try them, and try them with different things. Try them with water, try them with milk, try them with coconut milk, and see what your body responds best to. A lot of that is digestion based. I have no issue with milk or anything like that. I've actually got this legit one at the minute. I take this, it's a banana flavored protein, and in there I have this Puhoi Valley. It's half milk, half cream. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It's the greatest drink I've ever had. So I would go with that. I wouldn't even think about creatine. That is like, it's like saying I'm learning to drive, and I'm in my 1988 Corolla, and I'm going to be putting avgas in instead of the cheapest fuel I can possibly buy. It's going to do nothing. And all you're going to do then is, when it's time to take creatine, when you've exhausted, particular training methodology, whatever, and you're going to use that as a jump from a plateau, you take it, it's not going to work. You've exhausted its use. So I'd be saying there, joint maintenance, followed by some type of digestible protein.
There's a lot about pre-workouts and drinks. You could just go down the rabbit hole, right? The big one, branched chain amino acids,
really
BCAAs,
good.
like that is, of all the supplements, that's the one that has made the most difference for us working out.
Really, really good for as soon as you train, because you don't have to take in that big kind of milkshakey situation. It's a real nice, it's like a cordial, so you can hit that as soon as you finish training. I'm not a pre-workout fan. I really am not a pre-workout fan at all. So many people take them, and so many people get I put them in the same category as energy drinks. They're there with energy drinks. People are just taking them for that buzz you can't work out without. It's like, oh, I'm not a fan of them at all.
Me neither.
Really not. One of the best things that I've ever found for working out was putting some lemon juice and a little bit of sea salt in my water. Because I was at a point I was tanking in some workouts, and I got onto that, and it was just it was that electrolyte hitter that I needed.
Yep. That's actually my morning routine.
Yeah.
The first thing I do when I get out of bed, I have a glass of water with the juice of one whole lemon and probably about half a teaspoon of Himalayan sea salt.
Legit.
And then I just that back, ready to go.
Yeah. If you're not doing water first thing in the morning, you're behind the game. You got to get
And then
that
I
water.
had drink coffee immediately.
the same situation.
Coffee in the car all the way to
Yeah.
the box.
Yeah, so I'd go for them.
Cool. Do we use questions that we already have the answers to as a way of delaying or negating a way to action?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we do, and way too much. Procrastination. I think procrastination is on the increase because our time can be... There's so many things now that will give white noise to our time. We've got this amount of time that we can spend that we're not getting any more of, that we can be so productive. There's 24 hours that you can be so productive in, but how much of it do we spend scrolling, getting that thumb going and just doing all that kind of scrolling there?
Go into the guts of your device and
know
look
what's
at how many hours a week you're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. YouTube's an interesting one because there's a lot of good that can come out of YouTube, but you can also go down the rabbit hole.
You go down that rabbit hole of, that clickbait, man fights crocodile.
Yeah.
Best fight ever.
Yeah.
Click on that and see where you're at in 2 hours.
It's like in a week, you'll be really surprised at how much time you are on your phone.
I set a limiter on mine where, you set the amount of time that you can spend per day on it. And once it's exhausted that, you've actually got to go in and say, yep, permission for another 15 minutes. And it's a really, once you blast over that, it's you've got to be asking yourself permission. But I think, going back to that question now, I think there's so many things that do cloud our ability to take action. They don't need to, but it's easier for us to get on the procrastination wagon rather than execute on something. When you were one of the first people that, you were actually the first person when we decided to move facilities that I told. And I remember being on the phone to you and I made that statement where I'm never happier than when I'm hustling, when I'm making stuff happen. And there's a time, and that feeling what you get, it's like that stomach feeling that you get. I'm never happier than when that's happening, that when I'm making stuff happen. And
when you commit to making a change and you see a vision starting to come to life, there's nothing more satisfying.
And it is making that jump from interest to commitment. You can be interested I'm really interested in starting a new business, or I'm really interested in doing X, Y, Z. But once you commit to that particular thing, and I think, as well as knowing the answer to the questions, I think one of the big things is as well is filling yourself with so many things that you are interested in that you're never going to take action on. That's a really big one. I've got all this kind of stuff. I'm interested in doing this. I'm interested in starting a business. I'm interested in doing whatever. And you fill yourself with so much of that because it's a great excuse to not do something. Look at prioritize and execute. Pick the one biggest one that's going to pick the smallest thing you can do that's going to have the biggest amount of leverage and hit that thing so hard. We have done, this morning I was up, I was editing podcasts, I was programming for the box, I was down painting the new place, and then bang, we're over here recording. It's just, I love that feeling.
Yeah, so this is one that I think a lot of people struggle with in a lot of different ways. I feel like I'm fat and I should just give up.
Wow. Yeah. It's pretty harsh in terms of the verbiage.
It's like, how hard is that on yourself,
hard.
that question?
That's
and
harsh
what is fat? What is that?
This, for me, that links a lot to weight. When people talk about I'm overweight, and this, I've said this before, this idea of this ideal weight. When people come in and that's the motivation, you're basically saying, I've plucked this mythical number out of midair because I'm never going to get to it, because I'm not actually interested in getting to it, but it's a great excuse for, going back to that previous question, it's a great excuse for my inaction. So you've got to look at these as black and white as possible. And, you know, I've said something very similar to this on a previous one, is, you know, you have an abundance of energy in your body that you've consumed when there's no need to consume it. So you can get rid of it. You can get rid of it, but you've got to utilize that energy. And you've got to have a really accurate time frame in mind. But more than anything, you've got to want to do that. And you've got to commit to doing that and not just be interested in doing that. And a great addictive property, I say great, it's a horrible addictive property that people have, but this, a very easy addictive property is this kind of self-loathing, is this self-pity, is this woe is me, is right. This is what I'm confined to. This is a prison sentence. Just pull the trigger.
And I think the way that this question is worded, it's very open-ended, and it's a real statement.
You could put that over 50 different people that look 50 different ways that are completely different from each other, and they're all going to interpret that. That's all going to be interpreted so many different ways. It is really, really open-ended.
So my interpretation of that is, I've been trying, but I'm not making the progress that I think I should be making.
Yeah. You probably... It's too open-ended to say this, but I'm going to look at it from one point of view and trying to link it to kind of what you said there, is you need to look at this black and white now. Get some expert advice. Like, seriously, just go and get some expert advice from someone in the game that knows what it is that they're doing.
And so is that a nutritionist, or is that a gym owner?
I think you could go either.
Is it a psychiatrist?
Choose your weapon. Choose your weapon. I mean, the most important thing is to hit one and execute on that one thing, because these things, you know, they're not mutually exclusive things. These things can run concurrently. You know, your gym owner, the person who's programming your exercise, to the person who's advising you on nutrition, to the person who's advising you on your mental state, to the person who's advising you on your financial situation. Then all these things complement each other. They all complement each other. But this is where the problem lies, is you need to be clear on the outcome that you want. Because if you're wishy-washy on the outcome, are you now that person who is just saying this so people listen? Because you want people to listen to you. And it's the easiest way is to just moan and be like, oh, this is how I feel. And it's really easy to be that, rather than that kind of upbeat person that's getting stuff done, because you don't need to tell people what it is that you're doing. But you need to be strategic and think, what's the outcome from this? What do I want to get out of this? And then that exercise prescription person and that nutritional advice person and that relationship advice person and that financial advice person, they can all then see what that strategic goal is and move towards that. But if you are there to just be indulged, if this is a question to just be indulged, draw a line under it. Straight up draw a line under it, because you'll get sick of me saying it, but nobody wants to hear it. And the more you say it, the less people listen.
All right, last question. I pride myself on being a kind and caring person, always doing things for other people. But lately I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. What can I do to stand up for myself and be strong and say no without losing friendships?
Stand up for yourself and say no. And, you know, I've said this so many times, but
how?
Yeah, but if
I think they know that.
Yeah, it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
It's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's how that thing's going to come across. You don't need to, someone says something, you don't need to be, no, there's no way I'm doing that. You're taking advantage of me. You don't have to come across like that. If you are sincere with what you do and sincere with how you go about things, and you actually say to someone, you know what, I just can't do that. At this point in time, I don't have the time, I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah. Do you know what I read into this is, I'm scared of letting people down.
Yeah.
That's what that question is. So how do you get into that mindset of not feeling responsible for letting people down.
People want to know the why behind what it is that they do. There's got to be a story with it. And if you explain that, and what you don't need to do when you explain that is justify it. You don't need to justify not devoting your time to someone else's problem. You don't need to do that. But you do need to explain that, you know what, I can't do that because. You're not justifying it, you're not making an excuse for it, but you're actually saying, no, this is taking up too much of my time or whatever it is, but you need to be clear with that so that person understands it. You know, don't make an excuse, don't hide behind something, just be straight up front. But being up front doesn't just mean being brash and saying, no, I'm not doing that, screw you. It just means that I do not have the bandwidth. This is consuming too much of my time. I've got other things that I need to focus on, you know, bigger fish to fry, whatever. I'm going to throw something at you now, Dan.
Oh.
You took some heat in the week. A certain low carbohydrate beverage. One of our guys that comes in the box is a brewer at the brewery opposite us, Deep Creek Brewery. Those guys make. I'm not a craft beer guy, but they make kick-ass craft beer, and unbeknownst to us, they do a low carb beer. And you want to explain your situation?
Well, as you know, I love my beer, always have. And I would call myself a little bit of a low-carb aficionado.
Check.
Simply because, and I love craft beer, but you're talking 300-400 calories a bottle or a pint.
It's a meal.
Yeah,
it's a meal.
It's a meal. And so if you're like me and you like to have a couple of beers, like you're throwing down a huge amount of calories, right? And so it's nice to have something light, you know, which is why I go for the pure blondes and, you know, those style of low carb, low calorie beers. Because you can have a couple of beers and not feel like it's going to completely destroy your whole day of eating.
Yeah. There's more, I mean, there's a lot more of them coming out now, but like you say, you're thinking pure blonde, you're thinking...
Spate's ultra low carb.
Yeah, the Stella Leger.
Yep.
And yeah, you can't get it over here, but when I spent quite a lot of time in the States, and the Michelob Ultra, you know, that's kick-ass.
So our friend Steve has just been made a brewer.
Yes.
At Deep Creek, who makes some fabulous beers. And he had me up the other morning.
He was throwing down the heat.
He was upset.
Yep.
And he let me know that they have developed a low carb beer. It's called local.
You got your hands on that?
Yeah, he gave me a couple, and the best way I can describe it is it's a low carb craft beer. And the problem with
and that's absolute. You're saying that now straight up. It's a low carb craft beer. It's 100%. Not like when someone says try this no sugar chocolate that tastes just like chocolate that actually tastes like turd. That's what it actually tastes like.
It makes all other low carb beers taste like water. Like it really does. It's a low carb beer and it has the depth and flavor of a craft beer. And I ordered a couple of cases of it the next day.
Yeah.
Boom.
So there you go. Vindicated, Steve. Draw the dogs off. There you go. Done. Look, if you want to connect with us and continue this and send us some more of these questions we're getting are awesome, you can do so via the website, altitudeleader.co.nz, Instagram, Facebook, at the Altitude Leader, Twitter, at Altitude Leader, and continue our meanderings. But
thank you, sir.
Wrap.